We are working our way down through Module 5 where we've been talking about all the page setup and print options that Excel has. We've talked now about headers and footers a little bit. We've talked about your print titles, your comments, but there are so many other page setup options there that I just want to take a few moments and look through some of those and get you familiar with what's there so you'll know where to go if you want to do some of these different things. Let's go ahead and head over to Excel and let's look through those page setup options. You want to make sure you're on the Page Layout tab, and then we're going to be looking at all of these options here. Let's start with margins. Here are some pre-designed margins that you can pick from, and you can see that every page has 6 margins. There is a top, bottom, left and right, and header and footer. Notice your header and footer margins are always less than your top and bottom. If they were more, they would actually appear in the printed part of your page, and you don't want that. If you don't like any of these that they have pre-set up for you, all you have to do is come to the very bottom where it says Custom Margins and click there, and that'll take you into this page setup that we were in earlier. Now remember, the way to get directly here, you can actually go here to where it says Page Setup with the little arrow, and it'll take you into this one. Here's where you can change your top, bottom, left, and right margins again. And something else that'll be of interest to you is this Center on Page option. If you have a small spreadsheet you're working with and you print it out, it's always going to print in the top left. To make it a little bit nicer, you can center it on the page horizontally. And sometimes you may want to center something both horizontally and vertically. You can just choose both or none. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And that's how the margins option works. The next one I want to show you is orientation. When you print as you would normally think of printing something, that's what we call portrait. If you turn the paper sideways, that's what we call landscape, and sometimes you need that when you have a lot of columns left to right that you want to get on a page. The next thing is where it says size. You can always change the paper size. Normally you have 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper, but then there's legal and there's envelopes, and you can see these other sizes that you might want to use. The next one is called the print area. If you have a certain area that you're going to want to be printing and you don't want it to print the rest of it, you can set the print area. And basically what would happen here is you would go through and actually select, just by dragging down like this, the area that you think you might want to print, and then that's how you would set the print area. You can also go back and clear the print area, and then that way when you get ready to print, you'll be able to tell it that you want to print a page or something specific that way. Breaks is where you're going to put in page breaks or remove page breaks. Now normally what Excel will do is it knows how much will fit on a page and it will insert a break for you. But if you want the break somewhere else, you can certainly do that yourself. Right now you can see that it breaks here at row 52 right at the bottom. You want to put manual ones above the ones the computer generated because you can't put more on a page physically. You can put less, but you can't put more. I would actually select one of the rows above the one the computer put in, and then I could go to breaks and say insert a page break. And then that will actually put a page break there for me, and you can see it there, and it got rid of the other one. And do you notice this one is a straight line where the other one was a green dotted line? That's how you know the difference between the ones you put in and the ones the computer put in. If you want to delete one, then go ahead and just select the row above and below, and you can go back to the breaks and say remove page break. And so there's lots of ways to put in page breaks or remove page breaks that way. Now let's talk about backgrounds for a second. This is really neat. You have the ability to take a picture that you might have already in your computer somewhere, or you can do a Bing search, or you might have one saved in your personal OneDrive. Let's say we do a search and we look for money. What will happen is that it's going to go out to Bing and it's actually going to look for any pictures that you have permission to use, and then you're going to go ahead and choose one and you're going to say insert. And now you'll see the background of your whole entire spreadsheet here is that picture of money. Now this makes it really hard to read, but that is an option, and it does not print, by the way. It's only for viewing on the screen. Notice you can now delete your background if you wanted to do that. Now let me scroll back up to the top. We already talked about your print titles, so let's move over here to where it says width, height, and scale. And this is where you're going to be able to go ahead and shrink the width of your printout. If you want it to fit, for example, 2 pages, you can actually change the width of it, you can change the height, or you can change the scaling. Now width and height are automatic, but you can go in and say you want to set it to 1 page, 2 pages, or whatever you want to set it to. Now scaling, it's actually going to look at your page at 100%, and let's just say 1 column wouldn't print on that page, for example. It would actually shrink it so that you could get everything on 1 page. That's called scale to fit. Let's go back over here to page setup because I want to go down here to this arrow and see if there's any options that we didn't have buttons for. On the page tab, here's our portrait and landscape that we talked about. There's your scaling we just mentioned. Sometimes if 1 column prints on another page, you might try the fit to option to see if it would make everything fit 1 page across and 1 page tall. You can change your paper size here. We already talked about margins, and we talked about header and footer, and we talked about a couple things under the sheet tab. I did want to mention that you have the ability to print your grid lines right here. Sometimes people ask me, how do you print these lines around each of the cells? And those are your grid lines, but what you really want to do is print borders, not grid lines. Grid lines will print all of them that are on the page. You can also choose to print this black and white, what they call draft quality, or print the row and column headings, which would be this ABC or this 1, 2, 3 over here. You can also tell it how you'd like to print the page order. If you have 5 pages, maybe you want to go down first and then across, or across and then back down, whatever works for you. And that's going to be your page setup options right there. So you can see there's quite a few options there as far as your page setup. Well, let's go ahead and go over to section 5 now, and I'll show you how to go ahead and have everything fit on 1 page if these options we talked about up here don't work for you.